They were the most powerful beings in the Empire. But they whispered like frightened servants. 12 Threxian high counselors sat in a dark chamber beneath the palace. Tall, proud, ancient warriors, yet their voices were low, because for the first time in decades, they didn't understand their queen. She no longer joins the war meetings. One hissed, she canceled the fleet expansion. Another growled. She locked herself in her chambers. With the human, a third spat, venom in every word. Hi. General Krith, the oldest among them, stood. His face was scarred from 100 battles. He slammed his fist on the table. Our queen was born for war, he said. Not for whispering to animals from Earth. Back above, Queen Velara stood. Before her window, she hadn't slept. She didn't need to. Her body was strong. But her mind was at war. Jason's words from last night still echoed inside her like fire and storm. You just don't know what you are yet. He wasn't trying to control her. He wasn't afraid of her. He just saw her. And now she looked at the stars, wondering for the first time what it would mean to stop conquering and start building something else. Something with him. Behind her, a small sound. She turned sharply, ready to strike, but it was only Jason, standing in the doorway, holding a bowl of something strange. I found food that doesn't crawl, he smiled. You should try it. Velara relaxed and let a smile touch her lips. Jason walked in and handed her the bowl. What's going on in that giant brain of yours? She didn't answer. Instead, she asked quietly, what would humans do if their leader fell in love with someone they were meant to destroy? Jason looked up at her. Some would panic. Some would try to stop it. But the good ones? They'd protect that love, no matter the cost. Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded through the palace. Velara spun around. Her screen blinked to life. Emergency. Message, council gathering, immediate presence required. Jason stood. That doesn't sound good, Velara growled. They're planning something. He stepped in front of her. Then don't go alone. She touched his shoulder. If they see you with me, they'll attack. I need to play this smart. Jason's jaw clenched. Just promise me something. She tilted her head. Don't let them speak for you, he said. You're the queen. Be louder than their fear. Minutes later, she entered the council chamber. The room went silent. She stood. Tall, silver armor shining, eyes like twin suns. High General Krith stepped forward. My queen, he said carefully, your people grow uneasy. Velara raised a brow. Uneasy? Because I didn't kill a man fast enough? Because you are changing, he snapped. And the Empire does not survive change. She walked slowly to the center of the room. Then she looked at each counselor in the eyes and said, what if I told you that change is the only way we survive? Gasps. Anger. Whispers. One shouted, is this about the human? Another growled, you would throw away centuries of blood for feelings? Velara's voice turned cold. I would throw away anything that makes me blind to truth. In that moment, High General Krith gave a silent signal. Tiny movements, hidden to her eyes, but not to the sniper waiting above the chamber, watching her every move. Waiting for the shot. Back in her chamber, Jason stared at the door. He felt something. A twist in his gut. Something was wrong. Not from a wound, not from an assassin, but from something far more terrifying to the Threxian queen. Weakness. Palace. Healers rushed in. Sirens screamed. Her eyes fluttered as she was lifted from the cold floor and carried through halls she once ruled like a goddess. Jason arrived seconds later. Heart racing, pushing past guards twice his size. Where is she? He shouted. No one answered. Until a voice said behind him, she's in the medical wing. But something's wrong with her body. Jason turned to see the palace's chief medic, an old Threxian woman with trembling hands. She's changing. In the biolab, Queen Velara lay still, her eyes half open, breath shallow. Tubes wrapped around her arms. Strange readings flashed on every screen. Alien. DNA patterns. Mutations. Growth. Double quotes. Her energy levels are fluctuating like nothing we've seen, the medic whispered. Her blood is adapting. Jason stood at her bedside, fists clenched. Tell me the truth. The medic hesitated. Then spoke the words that no one had ever expected to hear in the Empire. She's pregnant. Jason froze. He looked at Velara's face, soft now, her power quiet. He took her hand. How is that possible? The medic replied, it shouldn't be. Our species aren't compatible. No Threxian has ever conceived outside our kind. Jason's voice was quiet. But she did. Behind the medical chamber walls, the council was already meeting. She's carrying a hybrid, one snarled. A threat, another whispered. A symbol of weakness, hissed General Krith. They didn't see life, they saw a weapon. Or, worse, a revolution. Meanwhile, in the dark of the palace's data vault, a young Threxian scientist studied the scans again. He zoomed in on the child forming inside the queen. Tiny heartbeat. Shifting DNA. A mix of human and alien, and something more, something new. He whispered. This child could survive where we can't. Adapt faster, feel more, think deeper. Then he paused, shocked. This child could lead us into the future. Hours later, Velara opened her eyes. Jason was still there, half asleep in the chair beside her. She whispered, you stayed. He stood quickly. Of course. Her voice trembled. Something's inside me, he nodded. Our child. She closed her eyes again. They'll come for it. For me. For you. Jason stepped closer. Then we fight. Together. Outside the chamber, the guards stood still. But their orders had changed. A quiet message had arrived from the council. Prepare to detain the queen. The human is no longer protected. Eliminate him on sight. The queen did not walk out of the medical wing. She stormed out. No armor, no crown. Only truth in her blood. And Jason at her side. Every hallway of her palace felt different now. The silence was heavy. The guards stared, but didn't salute. She knew why. The council had turned at the main gate. General Krith waited with a full squad of elite soldiers. Stepped forward and raised his voice. By order of the High Council, Queen Velara, you are to be detained for endangering the Empire. Jason stepped in front of her, fists clenched. Krith sneered. And the human must die. Velara's eyes lit with fire. You will not touch him, she said, voice like thunder. Krith's tone turned cold. You carry a threat to our future. Your judgment is clouded. You've grown weak. Velara stepped forward. No, I've finally seen clearly. Then she attacked. It was not just a fight. It was a war cry. She moved like a storm, faster than they remembered. Every punch shattered metal. Every scream burned the air. Jason fought beside her, dodging blasts, disabling soldiers, protecting her back. They weren't just defending themselves. They were fighting for something new. A future not built on fear, but on choice. Fall back, shouted Krith, bleeding and stunned. But more guards rushed in. Dozens. Velara glanced at Jason. They'll keep coming. You need to go. Jason shook his head. Not without you. She gritted her teeth. Don't make this harder. More. Gunfire rained around them. Suddenly, a flash grenade. Jason was thrown back by the blast, dazed. Guards closed in. Velara screamed, unleashing a shockwave that blew them all away. She rushed to him, helping him up. Blood ran from his temple. Are you with me? She asked. He smiled through the pain. Always. They fled deeper into the palace, into the ancient escape tunnels no one had used in decades. Outside, a small stolen ship waited, cloaked and hidden beneath the trees. As they reached it, Velara turned one last time, looking at her kingdom burning behind her. Jason touched her hand. You're not running. You're saving something bigger. Inside the ship, as stars blinked past the windows, Valara placed a hand on her belly. A faint heartbeat echoed in her chest. Not just hers, theirs. 1 year later, on a quiet moon far from any empire, a child was born. Silver skin, human eyes, perfect blend of two enemies. And in his first cry, the galaxy changed. Because when a queen chose love over fear, a new legacy was born. The queen stood in front of the mirror, but she didn't see herself. She saw him, the human in chains, his bloody face, his calm eyes, his maddening smile. She had crushed entire armies. She had made kings fall to their knees. She had eaten fear like food. But now, one small broken man haunted her thoughts. She turned away from the mirror and slammed her clawed hand against the wall. Why can't I stop thinking about him? Back in the prison, Jason lay on the cold floor, bruised and sore. He stared at the ceiling, whispering to himself, "She'll come again. She has questions, she wants answers, she doesn't know why. But she needs to understand." The door slammed open, right on time. Queen Valara walked into the prison chamber alone. No guards, no servants, no weapons. Jason stood up slowly. His ribs hurt, but his back stayed straight. They stared at each other in silence. Then she finally said the words boiling inside her. "Why are you not afraid of me?" Her voice was low, cold, but underneath it was something else. Not rage. Not pride. Jason looked into her glowing eyes and answered, "Because I've seen what real monsters look like. And you're not one of them." She blinked, confused. "You think I'm not a monster?" she asked. Jason walked to the bars. "No, you're lonely, angry, maybe tired, but not a monster." The queen stepped forward quickly, her eyes fierce. "I've burned cities. I've watched children cry as their worlds turned to ash." Jason nodded. "I believe you. Then why are you calm?" he smiled. "Because you're talking to me. If you were a real monster, I'd already be dead." That hit her like a knife. She turned away, breathing hard. Her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not even her generals. Not even her old mates. Jason's voice followed her. "Power isn't fear. Real power is when people follow you without chains." Valara froze. Those words echoed in her head. Was that true? Had she ever known if her people followed her by choice or just by fear? She looked back at him. "You speak like a ruler." Jason shrugged. "I speak like a human." Suddenly, the air shifted. An explosion shook the far wall of the prison. Dust fell from the ceiling. A red alarm began to scream. Valara's eyes narrowed. She activated her wrist device. A voice spoke. "My queen, unauthorized attack. Inside the palace. Someone is trying to kill the human." Her body moved before she could think. She rushed to the cage, broke the lock with her bare hand, pulled Jason out. He stumbled, surprised. "You're saving me?" Valara growled. "Not for you. For me. No one kills my prisoner without my command." They ran down the hall. Alien assassins appeared from the shadows, blades ready. Jason grabbed a metal pipe from the wall. "Guess I'm earning my freedom." They fought side by side, one tall, glowing, deadly. The other small, fast, and clever. By the time it ended, 4 assassins lay dead. Jason was bleeding again. Valara had a cut on her arm, but they were alive. In the silence after battle, she turned to him. "You risked your life to fight with me. Why?" Jason looked at her with steady eyes. "Because I protect those who stand with me, even if they're 8 feet tall and confused." Queen Valara stared at him for a long moment. Then she did something no one in the Empire had ever seen her do. She smiled, just once, but it was real. In the shadows, the Threxian general who had ordered the attack watched them from a secret chamber. He clenched his jaw. "She's falling for him," he whispered. "This must be stopped." The palace guards were confused. It was past midnight. The queen had given a single strange order: bring the human to my private chamber, alone. No one enters, no one listens, no one speaks. No one dared question her. Jason stood in front of a giant golden door, shirt torn, bruises still fresh on his skin. He looked up at the guards. One of them whispered, "Are you sure you want to go in there, human?" Jason gave a half smile. "Do I have a choice?" The door opened with a soft hiss. He stepped inside. It closed behind him with a loud click. Locked. The room was huge, walls made of glass and firestone. The stars above shimmered through the ceiling. It was quiet, warm, and strangely peaceful. Queen Velara stood at the center, wearing no armor, no crown. Just a simple black robe that still made her look powerful and dangerous. She didn't speak at first. Jason stepped closer. "Should I be worried?" he asked. She turned slowly, eyes glowing softly in the dim light. "You keep asking if you should fear me," she said. "But I think the better question is, why do I not fear you?" Jason raised an eyebrow. "You could crush me in 1 second. "Yes," she replied, "but I won't." Silence again. Then she walked over to a table and poured 2 drinks. Strange blue liquid. Alien wine, maybe. She handed him a glass. "No poison, I promise." Jason accepted it but didn't drink. "Why am I here, Velara?" She didn't correct him for using her name. Instead, she sat down on a stone bench, looking almost tired. "I wanted to remember what it feels like," she said. "To feel something." Jason sat across from her, watching her carefully. "All your power," he said, "and you still feel empty?" Velara looked up, her eyes sharp. "I've had warriors, kings, even other queens. They all wanted one thing: control." Jason leaned forward. "And what do I want?" She studied him. Then whispered, "I don't know. And that's why you scare me." Suddenly, she stood and walked toward him, slow, powerful steps. Jason didn't move. She stopped inches from him, towering over him. "You confuse me," she said. "You fight me. You bleed for me. You argue like a soldier and speak like a philosopher. You act like I'm not your enemy." Jason looked up. "Calm. You're not. You just don't know what you are yet." Her hands twitched. Then she said the last thing he expected. "Touch me. Just once, and I'll know if this is real." Jason hesitated. He reached up and gently touched her hand. She flinched, not in pain, but in shock. Her breath caught in her throat. Something changed in that moment. It wasn't lust, it wasn't power, it was connection, deep, strange, impossible. The queen of the Threxian Empire, the destroyer of cities, the feared ruler of stars, closed her eyes and let a human hold her hand. For hours, they sat there, talking, silent, listening. Jason told her stories of Earth, of love, of rain, of music. Things she had never seen or heard. She told him of war, of betrayal, of loneliness. Inside a palace full of people, they were 2 different beings. But in that moment, they weren't so different at all. The suns began to rise. Jason stood and stretched. "Guess the galaxy will explode if anyone finds out the queen spent the night with a human." Velara smirked. "They'll explode harder when they find out." I enjoyed it. Jason turned to leave, but then Velara said softly, "Jason, stay. Just a little longer." Outside the chamber, someone listened through a hidden device. The general, his eyes burned with hate. "She's falling completely," he hissed. "Before the next sun sets, the human must die." The war had ended. The battlefield was quiet now, full of smoke, broken weapons, and bodies. The Threxian Empire had won. Again, their giant soldiers stood tall, their black armor shining under the red suns of planet Varnok. Among the few human survivors was a man named Jason Kola, young soldier with dirt on his face and blood on his hands. He had fought until the very end. But now his arms were chained, and his feet dragged as he was pushed forward by the tall alien guards. They took him to the center of the alien city, where a giant throne stood. The air was thick with heat, and the smell of burning metal floated in the wind. Thousands of aliens watched. Their glowing red eyes staring at the top of the stairs sat Queen Velara, ruler of the Threxians. She was massive, 8 feet tall, with silver skin that shimmered like armor. Her long black hair moved like smoke, and her 4 glowing eyes looked down at the human with pure boredom. When Jason was thrown to the ground in front of her, he did not bow. He looked up straight into her eyes. A whisper moved through the alien crowd. No human ever looked directly at their queen, not unless they were ready to die. One of the Threxian generals stepped forward and spoke loudly. "Your Majesty, this one did not run. He fought 10 of our warriors alone before we captured him. He is strange." Velara leaned forward slowly, her voice low and full of pride. "Strange? He is small, weak, dirty. What use is he to us?" The general smirked and added with a cruel laugh. Some among the court joked that if your Majesty ever needed a mate, this one might offer himself. The entire crowd burst into laughter, cold, cruel, loud. Jason didn't laugh. He didn't even blink. He simply stood up, even while chained, and said calmly, "Maybe you should try, Queen. You might be surprised what a human can do." The laughter stopped. A heavy silence fell over the throne room. Queen Velara stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then she laughed. A deep, loud laugh that echoed off the walls. She stood from her throne, walked down the steps, and stood over him. Jason had to tilt his head back just to keep eye contact. Her shadow swallowed him whole. She leaned down and said, almost gently, "You think you could breed with me?" She laughed again, louder. "You would break apart before the first night ended, little man." Jason's voice stayed calm. "Maybe, but you'd remember me forever." That made her pause. Something in his voice, something in his eyes, made her stop laughing. The queen stood straight again. She turned to the guards. "Put him in the steel cage. Let him rot with the others." As Jason was dragged away, he smiled, not in fear, but in quiet confidence. That night, Queen Velara sat alone in her private chamber. The firelight danced across her silver skin. Her long fingers touched the edge of her cup, but she didn't drink. She was thinking about the human. His voice, his words, his eyes. He wasn't strong. He wasn't tall. He wasn't fast. But he didn't fear her. Why? She had destroyed whole planets. Her name was known across 10 star systems. No male alien or human had ever looked at her the way he did. In the prison cage, Jason sat on the cold floor, chained, surrounded by alien bones and rust. But his eyes were calm, focused. Another human soldier in the next cell whispered, "You're mad. You talked back to the queen." Jason replied softly, "No, I gave her something none of them can. A challenge." The other man frowned. "You think she'll come back?" Jason's smile widened. "She has to. I'm already under her skin." The next morning, the queen visited the cages. She didn't say anything, just stood and stared at Jason from the shadows. He looked back at her without fear, and deep in her chest, something strange moved, something she had not felt in a long time. Curiosity. The sound of metal doors slamming echoed through the cold prison hall. Queen Velara walked slowly, her footsteps loud and heavy. Her eyes burned with something she didn't understand. Frustration, or was it interest? She had ruled her people for 50 years. No one ever made her feel this way. No one had ever looked at her the way that human did. She stopped in front of Jason's cage. He was sitting calmly, his back against the wall, eyes closed like he was meditating. He opened them slowly and smiled. Velara's jaw tightened. This human was mocking her. In front of everyone, he had dared to speak as if he were her equal. Now he sat like a king in a cage, as if her empire meant nothing. She turned to her guards. Take him. Show him what happens to those who disrespect the queen. The guards dragged Jason from the cage and chained him to a metal post in the vault. Center of the prison yard. Alien prisoners watched from the shadows. No one dared speak. The first punch landed hard. Jason's head jerked, blood hitting the ground. He didn't scream, he didn't beg, he smiled again and again. The guards struck in fists, boots, stun rods. But Jason only stared at Queen Velara. With the same calm eyes, like he was studying her. Velara's claws curled tight. Something in her chest twisted. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was supposed to break, cry, plead. But instead, Jason spoke through bloody lips. Still watching, Your Highness? You can't look away, can you? For a moment, Velara said nothing. Then she turned and walked away fast. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her palace was quiet. Her bed was large and soft. But her mind was loud. The human's face, his blood, his words. She had seen fear in 1,000 species. But this one didn't fear her. Not even while bleeding. Why? What kind of creature smiles while being beaten? She got out of bed, walked to the window, and stared at the stars. Is this some human trick? She whispered. The next day, Jason was thrown back into his cage. His face was swollen. One eye shut. Ribs possibly cracked. But when he saw her return to the cell block, he stood up straight. Even though it hurt. Valara stepped closer to the bars. Why didn't you cry out? She asked, quietly. Jason answered without delay. Because pain fades. But weakness stays forever. I won't let you see me weak. She narrowed her eyes. And you think that impresses me? He smiled again. It makes you come back, doesn't it? That made her pause. He was right. She had come back. Again. Suddenly, Velara shouted at the guards, Leave us. The soldiers looked confused but obeyed. Soon, it was just her. And the human. She walked closer to the cage and lowered her voice. You don't belong here. You're too soft, too small. Why do you fight? Jason looked into her eyes. Because humans don't give up. You may be taller, stronger, faster, but we survive because we never stop. Even if the universe breaks us, we crawl back. For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then, she did something strange. She reached through the bars and touched his cheek. Gently. Jason didn't flinch. Velara pulled her hand back quickly, shocked by her own action. I should kill you, she whispered. Jason replied, Then why haven't you? Outside the cell block, one of the Threxian generals watched from the shadows, his eyes narrowing. He had seen it. The queen touching the human. This could not be allowed.